The great halls of the Observer Council stood quiet as Elder Gray moved slowly toward the center platform. His four-fingered hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the simple blue robe that marked his position as chief scientist. For 300 cycles, the observers had maintained their watch of the stars, sending signals into the darkness. For 300 cycles, no answer had come. The universe is empty, many now believed. We are alone. Elder Gray did not share this view, but after so many years of silence, even he had begun to doubt. The council chambers, carved from the pale stone of their homeworld's largest mountain, held 30 of the wisest observers. Today, they gathered for what most considered a mere formality, the annual report on deep space signals. Esteemed council, Elder Gray began, his voice thin with age, I bring the 300th report of our deep space listening program. Council Leader White nodded, her eyes half closed as if already bored. Proceed, Elder. Though I expect this report resembles the last 50 you have delivered. A small ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. Elder Gray ignored it. Our arrays have detected nothing of note from neighboring systems, he continued, following the traditional words. No signals of intelligent origin have been... Oh, soft chime interrupted him. The small device at his wrist pulsed with blue light, a signal from the observatory. Elder Gray paused, confused. The observatory staff knew better than to interrupt a council meeting. Is there a problem, Elder? Asked Council Leader White. I am not certain, Elder Gray replied, touching the device. A simple message appeared. Return immediately. Anomaly detected. The council members shifted in their seats, unused to disruptions of any kind. The observers valued order above all else. It seems I must cut this report short, Elder Gray said. The observatory requires my attention. What could possibly be so urgent? Asked Council Member Green, his voice sharp with annoyance. Another comet? A solar flare? Elder Gray shook his head. I do not know, but I intend to find out. The observatory sat atop the highest peak of the mountain range, its white domes gleaming in the light of their yellow sun. By the time Elder Gray arrived, the main control room buzzed with activity, something he had not seen in decades. What is happening? He demanded as he entered. Young observer Tech Brown rushed forward, his eyes wide with excitement. Elder, we detected something entering the outer reaches of our system. Something artificial. Elder Gray's hearts beat faster. Show me. Tech Brown led him to the main display, where a blurry image showed a distant object moving at impossible speed. Data streams filled the surrounding screens, numbers and calculations that made no sense. This cannot be right, Elder Gray muttered, adjusting the display settings himself. Nothing can travel at these speeds. The energy requirements would be impossible by our understanding, finished Tech Brown. Yet there it is. Elder Gray stared at the readings. The object was slowing now, its trajectory bringing it toward the fourth planet of their system, a small colony established 50 cycles ago. Have you contacted the colony? He asked. Tech Purple, the communications specialist, nodded quickly. Yes, Elder, they report visual confirmation. It's a ship of some kind, but unlike anything in our records. A ship? Elder Gray's voice dropped to a whisper. From where? Unknown, said Tech Purple, but it appears damaged. Its course is erratic, and it's emitting radiation patterns we've never seen before. Elder Gray studied the image as the computer enhanced it. The ship was indeed like nothing the observers had ever built. Where observer vessels were smooth and round, this craft was angular with strange protrusions and what appeared to be external engines, a design the observers had abandoned centuries ago as inefficient. It's heading directly toward Colony 4, said Tech Brown. At its current speed, it will reach them in 6 hours. Have they tried communicating with it? Elder Gray asked. Yes, Tech Purple replied. They've sent standard greeting signals on all frequencies, no response. Elder Gray stood silent for a long moment. In all their history, the observers had never encountered another spacefaring species. Their scientists had calculated the odds as infinitesimally small, so small that most had concluded it was impossible. Their own ventures into space had been cautious, methodical. They had established colonies on the two nearest planets, but had never attempted to leave their star system. The energy requirements were too great, the distances too vast, yet here was proof that someone, something, had done what they thought impossible. "Alert the Defense Ministry," Elder Gray finally said, "and prepare my ship. I'm going to Colony 4. Tech Brown looked alarmed. "Elder, at your age, the journey might be—" "I have waited 300 cycles for this moment," Elder Gray interrupted. "I will not miss it because of old bones." Colony 4 was the smallest of the observer outposts, home to just 2,000 colonists who maintained the mining operations on the small rocky planet. Observer Blue, the colony administrator, had never expected anything exciting to happen during his assignment. Colony 4 was where careers went to die quietly. Now he stood in the colony's small observation dome, watching the alien ship grow larger in the view screen. "Have the shelters been prepared?" he asked his assistant. "Yes, Administrator," replied Assistant Orange. "All colonists have been moved to the underground facilities as ordered." "Good." Observer Blue nodded. "And the defense systems?" Assistant Orange hesitated. "They're operational, sir. But they were designed to deflect asteroids, not combat. An unknown vessel. Let us hope we don't need them at all," Observer Blue said quietly. The ship was clearly visible now, even to the naked eye, a dark shape against the stars, trailing what looked like smoke or vapor. Its surface was scorched in places, and parts of it appeared to be breaking away as it entered the thin atmosphere of Colony 4. "It's going to crash," Assistant Orange realized aloud. "Right here." Observer Blue touched the communication panel. "Attention, unknown vessel. You are on collision course with our colony. Please adjust your trajectory if possible. We are sending navigation data now." No response came, but the ship's path seemed to shift slightly, not enough to avoid impact entirely, but enough to suggest some control remained. "They're trying to land," Observer Blue said. "Alert the emergency teams. Prepare for whatever comes next." The alien ship disappeared behind the rocky ridge to the east of the colony. Moments later, the ground shook as a tremendous boom echoed across the landscape. A plume of dust rose into the sky. Observer Blue took a deep breath. "And now we wait." But they didn't wait long. Just minutes after the crash, their sensors detected movement from the ship. Something was emerging. "Magnify," ordered Observer Blue. The screen showed a figure climbing from a hatch in the damaged vessel. It stood on two legs like the observers, but its proportions were all wrong, the limbs too long, the head too small. It wore some kind of protective suit, but even through it, Observer Blue could tell this creature was nothing like his people. The figure turned, seeming to look directly at the colony's cameras. Then it raised a hand in what might have been a greeting, or a warning. "Elder Gray's ship will arrive in 3 hours," Assistant Orange said quietly. "Let's hope that's soon enough," replied Observer Blue, watching as a second figure emerged from the crashed ship. "Because after 300 cycles of silence, it seems we are no longer alone." And as if to emphasize this point, a third figure appeared, carrying what was unmistakably a weapon. Captain James Reed knew they were in trouble the moment the Pathfinder exited the jump. The ship shuddered violently, emergency lights bathing the bridge in angry red. Warning klaxons blared as system after system reported critical failures. "Status. Report," he shouted over the noise, gripping his command chair as another tremor rocked the vessel. Engineer Jane Wilson's fingers flew across her console, her face grim in the emergency lighting. "The experimental drive overloaded during the jump, Captain. We're venting plasma from the main reactor and the containment field is failing." "Can you stabilize it?" Jane shook her head. "Not without shutting down completely for repairs. And if we do that, we lose life support," Reed finished for her. "Options?" Navigator Tom looked up from his own displays, face pale but voice steady. "Sir, we've emerged near an uncharted star system. There's a planet within range. Small, rocky, but it has an atmosphere. Thin, but breathable." "Any signs of civilization?" Reed asked, already knowing they had no choice. The Pathfinder, humanity's most advanced deep space vessel, was dying around them. Tom adjusted his scanner. I'm picking up... Wait. That can't be right. He looked up, eyes wide. Captain, I'm detecting artificial structures and energy signatures. There's someone down there. A strange silence fell over the bridge, drowning out even the alarms for a moment. Humanity had spent centuries searching for intelligent life among the stars. They had found microbes, simple organisms, the remnants of ancient civilizations long turned to dust. But never, not once, had they found another spacefaring species. Until now, when they were about to crash right into them. Well, Reed said, breaking the silence. This isn't how first contact was supposed to go. The ship lurched again, more violently this time. A support beam broke loose from the ceiling, crashing down mere inches from the navigation console. We're losing structural integrity, Jane reported. Captain, we need to land, now. Reed nodded, making the hardest decision of his career. Tom, plot us a course away from any population centers. Try to put us down somewhere isolated. Jane, divert all remaining power to the landing thrusters and life support, and someone try to raise whoever's down there on all frequencies. Let them know we come in peace and that we're really sorry about this. Communications Officer Dan tapped frantically at his console. Sending standard greeting packages on all bands, sir. No response yet. Reed stood, steadying himself against his chair. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency landing procedures. This is not a drill. Throughout the ship, the 23 crew members of the Pathfinder, scientists, engineers and explorers all, strapped themselves into crash positions. They had trained for this, but training never captured the bone-deep terror of a ship breaking apart around you. In the medical bay, Dr. Mark secured his patients, 2 engineers injured when the drive first malfunctioned, and whispered a quick prayer. In the science lab, biologist Lisa frantically backed up their research data, knowing they might lose everything. In engineering, Chief Mechanic Ben worked desperately to keep the engines functioning just long enough to land. On the bridge, Reed watched as the small planet grew larger in the view screen. They were committed now. I'm detecting signals from the surface, Dan reported. They're trying to communicate. Send everything we've got, Reed ordered. First contact protocols, translation matrices, the works. The ship entered the planet's thin atmosphere, fire blooming around the hull as friction heated the metal. The Pathfinder was never designed for atmospheric entry without proper preparation, and it showed. Panels tore free, spiraling away into the alien sky. Brace for impact, Reed shouted as the ground rushed up to meet them. The Pathfinder hit hard, skidding across rocky terrain. Metal screamed as the hull scraped against stone. The bridge view screen shattered. Emergency foam deployed throughout the ship, cushioning the crew as the vessel finally ground to a halt. For a long moment, there was only silence and darkness. Then, one by one, emergency systems came back online. Reed coughed, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. Sound off. Around him, his bridge. Crew responded, battered but alive. Reed hit the ship-wide comm. All sections report. The reports came in slowly. 3 more injured, 1 seriously. Multiple hull breaches. The experimental drive had finally given up completely, leaking radiation into the engine room, which had automatically sealed itself. Jane, what's our situation with that radiation? Reed asked, helping Dan out from under a fallen console. Jane checked her handheld scanner, frowning. It's not like anything I've seen before, Captain. The jump drive creates exotic particles as a byproduct. They're contained in normal operation, but now... She looked up. We need to seal off that section completely, and we should warn our new neighbors. We don't know how these particles might affect them. Reed nodded. Dan, keep trying to establish communication. Tom, what's our location relative to their settlement? Tom had managed to get a portable scanner working. About 5 kilometers east of what looks like a small colony, sir. Maybe 2,000 inhabitants based on energy signatures. All right. Reed surveyed the ruins of his bridge, making another difficult decision. I need a team to assess the exterior damage. Volunteers? Jane, Tom, and Security Officer Mac all stepped forward. Reed nodded, unsurprised. Suit up. Full environmental gear. We don't know what's out there. Observer Blue watched the colony's screens intently as three figures emerged from the crashed alien vessel. They wore bulky suits that covered them completely, with transparent faceplates that revealed glimpses of their strange features. They carried tools and what might be weapons. "They're coming this way," Assistant Orange reported nervously. "Are the defense systems ready?" Observer Blue asked. "Yes, Administrator, but I must remind you that Elder Gray's instructions were clear. No hostile action unless directly threatened." Observer Blue nodded reluctantly. "Keep the systems on standby, and continue monitoring that radiation. What do we know about it?" Tech Purple consulted her readings. "It's unlike anything in our database, Administrator. It seems to be some form of exotic particle emission, highly energetic. Our sensors indicate it's slowly spreading from the crash site." "Is it dangerous?" "Unknown," Tech Purple admitted. "But I would recommend caution. Our biology may not be adapted to such exposure." Observer Blue sighed, feeling the weight of 300 cycles of history on his shoulders. The observers had always believed they were alone in the universe. Their society, their science, their very philosophy was built on that belief. And now, without warning, everything had changed. "Administrator," called Tech Green from the communication station, "I'm receiving a signal from the aliens. I think they're trying to communicate." "Put it on screen," Observer Blue ordered. The main display filled with strange symbols and diagrams, mathematical equations, atomic structures, simple drawings of bipedal figures. The message repeated, changing slightly each time as if the aliens were trying different approaches. "They're intelligent," Observer Blue murmured. "Clearly advanced. Their ship may be damaged, but the technology to travel between stars..." Yor trailed off, contemplating the implications. "Administrator," Assistant Orange said urgently. "The radiation from their ship, it's increasing, and our preliminary analysis suggests it could be harmful to our people." Observer Blue stared at the screen showing the three alien figures now making their way slowly toward the colony. They moved carefully, stopping often to take readings or examine the environment. They did not move like invaders, but like explorers, cautious, curious. "Alert the medical team to prepare for possible radiation exposure," he decided, "and send out a small scout team to intercept these aliens before they reach the colony. No weapons visible, but keep them ready. I want to know what we're dealing with before Elder Gray arrives." As the orders were carried out, Observer Blue couldn't help but wonder what these strange beings wanted, and why they had come here of all places. After centuries of searching the stars and finding nothing, the universe had suddenly delivered aliens right to their doorstep, in the most dramatic way possible. "Let us hope," he said quietly to himself, "that their crash was an accident, and not the beginning of something worse." Outside under the alien sky, Captain Reed and his team made their way slowly toward the colony, carrying a makeshift white flag, a universal symbol of peace they hoped would transcend the stars. Part 3. First Contact. The rocky terrain crunched beneath Captain Reed's boots as he led his small team toward the alien colony. The planet's gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, giving each step a subtle bounce that would take time to adjust to. Above them, the sky held an odd greenish tint, with the colony's parent star shining yellow through thin clouds. "Radiation levels?" Reed asked, not taking his eyes off the path ahead. Jane checked her scanner. "Still spreading from the ship, Captain. The exotic particles are behaving strangely in this atmosphere. They're dispersing faster than I calculated." Reed nodded grimly. Their first act upon meeting an alien civilization would be to warn them about the dangerous radiation leaking from their crashed ship. Not exactly the triumphant first contact humanity had dreamed of. "Movement ahead," Security Officer Mack announced, quietly, raising his hand. "About half a kilometer." Reed squinted through his helmet visor. Several figures were approaching from the direction of the colony. They moved with a careful grace, and even at this distance their alien nature was obvious. "Remember," Reed said to his team, "no sudden movements. Keep your hands visible." Follow first contact protocols. Those protocols didn't exactly plan for crash into their planet and contaminate it with exotic radiation, Tom muttered. We improvise, Reed replied simply. As the two groups drew closer, Reed got his first clear look at the aliens. They stood slightly shorter than humans, with slim bodies covered in pale, smooth skin that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Their faces featured large, almond-shaped eyes, two sets of them, one above the other, and small mouths with no visible nose. They wore simple, functional clothing in muted colors, and carried what appeared to be scientific instruments rather than weapons. Reed stopped about 20 meters from the alien group and slowly raised the white flag they had fashioned from a piece of medical cloth, universal symbol of peace. He said clearly, knowing his suit's external speakers would project his voice. Though I realize it might not be so universal after all. The alien stopped as well. One of them, wearing blue garments that seemed more elaborate than the others, stepped forward slightly. It raised a hand with 4 long fingers in what might have been their own greeting. Now what? Tom whispered. Now, said Reed. We try to communicate. He turned to Jane. You're our best shot at this. Ready to make history? Jane nodded, stepping forward with a small device in her hand. The universal translator was a work in progress not yet fully tested, but it was all they had. She activated the device, which projected a simple holographic display between the two groups. Mathematical equations appeared first, basic arithmetic, then progressing to algebra, geometry, and calculus. Numbers were thought to be universal. Mathematics, the most likely common ground between different intelligent species. The alien in blue watched intently, then produced its own device. A moment later, their hologram joined Jane's, the equations responding to hers, confirming, correcting, expanding. A silent conversation in the language of mathematics. It's working, Jane whispered, excitement clear in her voice. Slowly, the holograms shifted from pure mathematics to simple pictures, a star, a planet, basic atomic structures. With each exchange, the communication grew more complex. Jane added simple human figures to her projection. The alien responded with figures of their own kind. Reed felt a profound sense of awe. After centuries of searching the stars, humanity was finally speaking with another intelligent species. Despite their crash landing, despite the danger they had inadvertently brought with them, this moment was nothing short of miraculous. The exchange continued for nearly an hour, the two sides gradually building a rudimentary shared language. Eventually, Jane turned to Reed. I think we can try actual communication now, Captain. It won't be perfect, but the translator has enough to work with. Reed nodded and stepped forward. My name is James Reed. We are humans from the planet Earth. He gestured to his chest, then toward the sky in the direction they had come from, though Earth was far too distant to see. The translator converted his words into a series of symbols and sounds. After a moment, the alien in blue responded. The translator took several seconds to process, then produced, I am Observer Blue. We are observers. This is Colony 4. Reed couldn't help the smile that spread across his face. First words exchanged between two intelligent species. Whatever happened next, this moment would be remembered forever. We apologize for our arrival, Reed continued. Our ship was damaged. The crash was not intentional. A longer pause as the translator worked, then. We have many questions. Why have you come to our system? Exploration, Reed answered truthfully. We seek knowledge and peaceful contact with other intelligent life. Observer Blue seemed to consider this, its 4 eyes blinking in an odd pattern. Your ship leaks dangerous energy. Our sensors detect it spreading. Reed nodded gravely. Yes, that's one reason we came to find you. The radiation from our ship could be harmful. Your people should stay away from the crash site. As the translator conveyed this message, the aliens conferred among themselves, their voices soft and melodic. Finally, Observer Blue responded, We have detected this danger. Our colony is preparing. We can help, Jane interjected. We understand this radiation. It comes from our drive system. technology were still developing. The translator struggled with some of these concepts, but Observer Blue seemed to grasp the meaning. You travel between stars with unfinished technology? There was something in the alien's response that the translator couldn't quite capture. Perhaps surprise or even disapproval. We're explorers, Reed said simply. Sometimes that means taking risks. Before Observer Blue could respond, one of the other aliens approached urgently, speaking rapidly. The translator couldn't keep up, but the alarm was clear in the alien's body language. Observer Blue turned back to the humans. A storm approaches. Atmospheric disturbance. Very dangerous on this planet. You must return to your ship. Reed glanced at the sky. Dark clouds were indeed gathering on the horizon, moving with surprising speed. Our ship is damaged, he explained. It won't provide adequate shelter. Another quick conference among the aliens. Observer Blue seemed to be arguing with one of the others, a taller individual wearing gray. Finally, Observer Blue turned back. To the humans. You will come to our colony, for shelter only. When storm passes, you return to your ship. Reed nodded gratefully. Thank you, but I should warn you. We can't leave our injured crew members behind, and we need to contain the radiation leaking from our ship. The translator conveyed this, leading to another heated discussion among the aliens. Finally, Observer Blue responded. Send your people to help your injured. We will send our scientists to study the radiation. Together, we will find solution. 2 hours later, storm winds howled outside the colony's protective dome. Inside, humans and observers worked side by side in an uneasy alliance. Dr. Mark treated the injured crew members while observer medical personnel watched with fascination. In another section, Jane worked with observer scientists, trying to explain the exotic particles leaking from the Pathfinder's damaged drive. Observer, Elder Gray had arrived just as the storm hit, his small ship barely making it safely to the landing pad. Now he stood with Captain Reed and Observer Blue, watching the collaborative efforts. In 300 cycles, Elder Gray said through the increasingly accurate translator, we have believed ourselves alone. We sent signals to the stars. No answer came. We were looking too, Reed replied. All this time we were both searching. Yet you found us by accident, Elder Gray noted, his upper eyes blinking in what Reed was beginning to recognize as amusement. Sometimes the greatest discoveries happen that way, Reed said with a slight smile. Outside, the storm intensified. The colony's structures groaned under the assault of wind and debris. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. Eastern shield failing, announced an observer technician. Storm damage to generator. Observer Blue moved quickly to a control panel. Divert power from secondary systems. Not enough, the technician replied. Shield will fail in minutes. Eastern quadrant will be exposed. Reed exchanged glances with Jane, who had looked up from her work with the observer scientists. We can help, Reed said firmly. The Pathfinder's emergency generators are still functional. We use them for our landing thrusters. Observer Blue's 4 eyes focused on Reed. Your technology caused this danger. The radiation is a problem we'll solve, Reed interrupted. But right now your people need our help. Let us give it. After a moment's hesitation, Observer Blue nodded. Very well. Reed turned to his crew. Mac, Tom, get back to the ship. Salvage the emergency generators and whatever tools you need. Move fast. As the humans rushed to help, Elder Gray moved beside Observer Blue. They are strange creatures, the Elder observed quietly. Reckless, perhaps, but brave. Observer Blue watched as the humans organized themselves with remarkable efficiency, already adapting to the crisis. Yes, he agreed. Dangerous, but perhaps useful allies. Outside, the storm raged on, heedless of the historic cooperation taking place beneath its fury. Morning broke over Colony 4, revealing the storm's aftermath. Debris littered the landscape around the settlement, but the colony itself stood intact, thanks to the combined efforts of humans and observers. The Pathfinder's emergency generators, hastily integrated with the colony's power grid, had kept the eastern shield functioning throughout the night. In the colony's main hall, Captain Reed sat across from Elder Gray and Observer Blue. The translator device between them had been improved overnight, with Jane and the observer scientists working tirelessly to expand its vocabulary. Your quick action saved many lives, Elder Gray acknowledged, his 4 eyes studying Reed with open curiosity. The eastern quadrant houses our agricultural systems. Without them, the colony would face food shortages. Reed nodded. We're glad. We could help, and we appreciate the shelter for our injured crew. A fair exchange, Observer Blue said. But now we must discuss the greater problem. Reed knew what was coming. The radiation from our ship. Yes. Elder Gray leaned forward, slightly. Our scientists have studied the readings. These exotic particles are unlike anything in our knowledge. They are spreading through our atmosphere, and early tests suggest they may be harmful to our biology. We're working on containment solutions, Reed assured them. Engineer Jane and Chief Mechanic Ben believe they can modify our ship's containment fields to capture the leaked particles. Your engineer Jane has shared much about your technology, Elder Gray said. It is surprising. Reed raised an eyebrow. Surprising how? Elder Gray seemed to choose his words carefully. Your approach to space travel is unlike ours. You use great energy, brute force methods. We would consider many of your systems dangerously unstable. Yet you never left your star system, Reed pointed out, while we've explored dozens. At what cost? Observer Blue interjected. Your ship is severely damaged, your crew injured, and now our colony faces contamination. Reed couldn't argue with that assessment. Our methods may seem reckless to you, but humanity has always been willing to take risks to explore, to discover. He paused. It's how we found you. Before the conversation could continue, the door slid open and Jane entered, accompanied by an observer scientist in purple garments. Captain, Jane said, excitement clear in her voice. We've made a breakthrough with the containment problem. Reed gestured for her to continue. Observer Tech Purple here has theoretical models for particle containment that we never considered, Jane explained. They're based on completely different physics principles than what we use. And while the observers never built actual containment, fields this powerful, because we never needed them, Tech Purple added. Our energy systems are designed for efficiency, not the power levels your ship requires. Right, Jane continued. But if we combine their theoretical models with our practical engineering, we might be able to contain the radiation, Reed finished, understanding dawning. How soon? We need to build a prototype, Jane said. With the observer's help, maybe 2 days. Elder Gray and Observer Blue exchanged looks. 2 days may be too long, Observer Blue said. Our atmospheric models show the particles will reach critical concentration in the colony within 30 hours. Then we work faster, Reed stated simply. In another part of the colony, Dr. Mark stood in the observer medical facility, fascinated by the technology around him. The observer's medical science was advanced in some ways, primitive in others. Their understanding of genetics far surpassed humanity's, but their surgical techniques were surprisingly limited. You never developed invasive surgery? Mark asked. Tech Green, the lead medical scientist. Rarely needed, Tech Green explained, examining blood samples from the human crew. Our regenerative treatments and genetic therapies prevent most physical injuries or ailments. Mark nodded, watching as Tech Green placed a human blood sample under a scanner. And what have you learned about us? Fascinating biology, Tech Green said, genuine excitement in their voice. Your cells are both simpler and more complex than ours, less efficient in some ways, remarkably adaptable in others. The observer looked up. Your genetic diversity is extraordinary, almost as if your species was designed to survive anything, not designed, Mark corrected. Evolved, through countless challenges and near extinctions. Perhaps that explains your approach to space travel, Tech Green mused. You evolved to take risks. The conversation was interrupted by an alarm from one of the medical pods. Inside, one of the injured human engineers was experiencing elevated heart rate and fever. Radiation sickness, Mark said grimly, moving to the pod. I was afraid of this. The exotic particles affect human biology too. Tech Green moved quickly to another pod, where an observer patient was displaying similar symptoms. This observer was part of the first team to approach your ship. The symptoms are different but appear related to the same exposure. Mark studied the readings from both patients. Different symptoms but similar underlying mechanisms. The radiation is attacking cellular functions at the molecular level. Our standard treatments are ineffective, Tech Green reported, frustration evident. Mark thought for a moment. We need to combine our approaches. Your genetic therapies might be adapted to human physiology, and our radiation treatments might help the observers. Tech Green hesitated. Such experimentation would be unprecedented. So is everything about this situation, Mark pointed out. We have 2 patients getting worse by the hour. Are you willing to try? After a brief pause, Tech Green nodded. Yes, let us begin. In the colony's central plaza, a growing crowd of observers gathered, watching the humans with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Among them stood Observer Commander Stone, recently arrived from the Observer homeworld with a security detail. They are dangerous, Commander Stone said to his gathered supporters. Their technology is unstable, their methods reckless, and now they bring contamination to our colony. They also saved the Eastern Quadrant during the storm, one observer pointed out. A problem they helped create, Stone countered. And now Elder Gray and Observer Blue allow them access to our most advanced knowledge? Our medical facilities? This is madness, the crowd murmured, opinions divided. Stone continued, his voice rising. 300 cycles we have searched the stars carefully, methodically. We have developed our technology with precision and safety. Then these humans arrive, crashing into our world with their dangerous ship, their unproven theories. Yet, they've traveled between stars, another observer said, something we only dreamed of. At what cost? Stone demanded. Look at their ship, broken, leaking deadly radiation. Is that the future you want for our people? To become like them, throwing ourselves recklessly into space, bringing chaos wherever we go? The debate grew heated, reflecting the growing division among the observers. For centuries, their society had valued caution, calculation, and controlled progress. The humans represented something entirely different, a species that embraced risk, that pushed boundaries even at great cost. Back in the improvised laboratory, Jane worked alongside Tech Purple and several other observer scientists. Components from the Pathfinder had been carefully transported to the colony and integrated with observer technology. Your power systems are remarkably efficient, Jane commented, studying an observer energy cell. We could never achieve this level of miniaturization. Yet your systems produce 10 times the output, Tech Purple replied. We never considered such power levels necessary or safe. Jane nodded, making adjustments to their prototype containment generator. Different approaches to the same problems. You optimize for efficiency and safety. We optimize for power and range. A dangerous approach, Tech Purple observed. Sometimes, Jane admitted, but it's gotten us across the galaxy. A soft chime interrupted their work, a message from the medical facility. Jane read it, her expression brightening. Dr. Mark and Tech Green have developed a treatment for the radiation exposure. It's working on both species. Tech Purple's 4 eyes widened slightly. They combined our medical approaches? Apparently so, Jane said with a smile. And it's working better than either approach alone. Tech Purple was silent for a moment, then returned to the containment prototype with renewed focus. Perhaps there is something to be said for your human methods after all. As they worked, neither noticed Commander Stone watching from the laboratory entrance, his posture rigid with disapproval. The security commander turned away, his mind made up. These humans and their dangerous innovations could not be allowed. To influence observer society, something would have to be done. Outside the colony, the exotic particle concentration continued to rise, carried on the winds toward the larger settlements beyond. The containment field generator hummed to life, its blue glow illuminating the faces of humans and observers gathered in the colony's central chamber. Jane stepped back from the control panel, exchanging a nod with Tech Purple. After 3 days of nonstop work, their creation, a hybrid of human power systems and observer containment theory, was operational. Particle concentration is decreasing in the immediate area, Tech Purple announced, monitoring the readings. The field is working. A collective sigh of relief passed through the room. Captain Reed approached the device, studying its construction with appreciation. Observer design elegance combined with human engineering created something neither species could have built alone. How long until the radiation levels are safe? Elder Gray asked. Jane checked her calculations. At current rate, about 28 hours for the colony, but we'll need to expand the field's range to cover the crash site and surrounding areas. We've prepared transport to move additional generators to strategic locations, Observer Blue added. Within 3 days, the threat should be neutralized. Reed nodded, satisfied. It wasn't the smoothest first contact in history, but they were making it work. The injured crew members were recovering thanks to the combined medical treatments, and the radiation problem was being solved. The moment of triumph was short-lived. A colony-wide alarm suddenly blared, screens throughout the chamber flashing with urgent warnings. What now? Reed asked, moving to the central display. Observer Blue accessed the colony's sensor network, expression growing grave. Multiple objects, entering our atmosphere, not natural meteors, their descent is controlled. The screen showed several bright points of light streaking through the greenish sky, heading directly toward the colony. Are they yours? Elder Gray asked Reed. Reed shook his head. The Pathfinder was a solo mission. No other human ships could have reached this system yet. Then who? Observer Blue began, but was interrupted as Commander Stone entered the chamber, flanked by security personnel. I've taken command of colony defenses, Stone announced. These are the ancient watchers returning. Elder Gray's 4 eyes widened in shock. The watchers? But they're just legends, stories from before our recorded history. Not legends, Stone replied grimly. While you've been collaborating with these humans, our deep space array detected signals from the approaching crafts. They match fragments found in our oldest archives, the warnings left by our ancestors. The screens updated to show the objects more clearly as they entered lower atmosphere. Unlike the angular human ship or the smooth observer vessels, these were asymmetrical, organic-looking craft that seemed to pulse with internal light. The ancient texts speak of them, Stone continued. Entities that feed on energy, particularly the kind of exotic energy these humans have leaked into our atmosphere. Reed and Jane exchanged concerned looks. The drive radiation acted as a beacon, Jane realized. It drew them here. Precisely, Stone said, his tone accusing. Your reckless technology has brought doom upon us all. The Watchers were dormant, for millennia, until you woke them. Before Reed could respond, the colony shuddered as something impacted nearby. Warning lights flashed across the displays. They've landed, Tech Purple reported. 3 kilometers from the colony. They're moving this way. Observer Blue turned to Stone. Activate the defense systems. Already done, Stone replied. But they were designed to deflect meteors and space debris against intelligent attackers. He left the implication hanging. Reed stepped forward. Let us help. The Pathfinder has defensive capabilities. We can... You've done enough. Stone cut him off. Your presence, your technology, caused this threat. Elder Gray raised a hand, silencing the argument. Commander Stone, now is not the time for blame. If these truly are the ancient Watchers returning, we need every advantage. He turned to Reed. Captain, what can your ship offer? Reed didn't hesitate. Our weapon systems are damaged but salvageable. We have energy weapons designed for asteroid mining that can be repurposed, and our sensors might give us better information about what we're facing. Elder Gray nodded. Commander Stone, work with the humans. Observer Blue, Prepare the colony for possible evacuation. Stone looked ready to protest but gave a curt nod instead. Under protest. Noted. Elder Gray replied dryly. Now move. 2 hours later, Reed stood with Jane, Mac, and Commander Stone on a ridge overlooking the approaching threat. Through binoculars, they could see the intruders, tall, shifting figures that seemed to waver between solid and gaseous states. They moved with purpose toward the colony, leaving withered vegetation in their wake. Energy vampires, Jane murmured, scanning them with a modified sensor. They're absorbing all forms of energy from their surroundings: heat, electrical, biological. The legends say they consumed entire worlds in ancient times, Stone said, until our ancestors developed technology to drive them back into deep space. Technology we've lost, Reed noted. Stone's expression hardened. Because we believed the threat was gone forever, we turned to peaceful pursuits, scientific exploration. Well, now they're back, Max said practically, and we need to deal with them. Reed lowered his binoculars. How many defense satellites does the colony have? 12, Stone replied. Basic deflector shields, minimal offensive capabilities. If we could retrofit them with components from the Pathfinder's weapon systems, Reed began. Jane was already calculating. It's possible. We'd need to boost the power and reprogram the targeting systems. That would take days, Stone objected. We have hours at most. Reed smiled grimly. That's where human ingenuity comes, and we're good at impossible deadlines. Back at the colony, controlled chaos reigned as humans and observers worked together. The Pathfinder's weapon systems, designed to pulverize asteroids for mining operations, were carefully dismantled and transported to the colony's satellite control center. Dr. Mark and Tech Green coordinated medical preparations, expecting casualties. Ben worked with observer engineers to boost the colony's shield capacity. Even the injured crew members contributed, advising on technical matters from their recovery beds. In the satellite control center, Jane worked feverishly alongside Tech, Purple, reconfiguring observer satellites to accommodate human weapons technology. Your code is elegant, Jane commented, studying the observer programming. But too rigid. We need to make it more adaptable. Adaptability creates vulnerabilities, Tech Purple replied. In normal circumstances, maybe, Jane conceded. But right now, we need systems that can respond to the unexpected. Nearby, Reed and Stone monitored the approaching entities, now less than an hour from the colony's perimeter. There's something you should know, Reed said quietly. Your elder. Gray asked me earlier about our mission, why we came here. Stone's eyes narrowed. And the truth is, we were testing an experimental jump drive, a way to travel vast distances instantly. That's what created the exotic radiation when it malfunctioned. So you were using untested technology, Stone said accusingly. Gambling with forces you barely understand. Reed didn't deny it. Yes. That's how humanity has always advanced. We take risks. Sometimes they pay off. Sometimes... He gestured at their current situation. Stone was silent for a moment. My people would never approach space travel that way. We might never have reached other stars, and we might never have created a containment field as elegant as the one we built together, Reed countered. Different approaches, Commander, both with their strengths. Their conversation was interrupted by Jane's excited voice. We're ready. The satellites are reconfigured. On the main screen, 12 points of light represented the defense satellites in orbit around the planet. Each now carried a modified version of the Pathfinder's mining lasers, powered by observer energy cells and guided by a hybrid navigation system. Now we need a strategy, Stone said, moving to the tactical display. My people have always favored caution and precision. One carefully calculated strike. Reed studied the approaching entities. But these creatures adapt quickly. We need to be unpredictable. Multiple strikes from different angles, changing patterns. Stone considered this, then nodded reluctantly. A human approach. Very well. Not human, Reed corrected. Not observer, something new. As night fell over Colony 4, the final preparations were made. The colonists were secured in the central shelters. The modified defense satellites were positioned. The hybrid containment fields protected the colony's most critical systems from energy drainage. From the colony's command center, Elder Grey addressed his people. For 300 cycles we believed ourselves alone in the universe. In 1 week we have encountered 2 other intelligent species, one that might become our greatest ally, and one that threatens our very existence. He turned to Reed, standing beside him. Captain Reed and his crew came to us by accident, bringing both danger and opportunity. Now we face this threat together. Reed stepped forward. My people have a saying. Necessity makes strange bedfellows. It means crisis brings unlikely allies together. He looked around at the mixed group of humans and observers. We crashed into your world with a dangerous ship, but maybe that crash was exactly what both our peoples needed. Outside, the ancient watchers approached the colony's perimeter, drawn by the energy signatures within. Above, the modified satellites moved into position, guided by the combined tactical thinking of humanity and observers. As the order to fire was given, Reed couldn't help but think how typical this was of humanity's journey among the stars. Chaos and danger, yes, but also discovery and connection. They had come looking for intelligent life and found it in the most unexpected way. The satellites fired in an unpredictable pattern, a dance of light and energy raining down on the ancient watchers. The battle for Colony 4, and perhaps for both their species, had begun. In the command center, human and observer stood side by side, watching the displays as their combined technology and tactics were put to the test. Whatever happened next, the universe had changed for both civilizations. They were no longer alone, for better or worse. They thought no one would come, Elder Grey murmured, watching the battle unfold. And then humanity crashed into us. With a dangerous ship, Reed added with a slight smile. Perhaps, Elder Grey replied. Exactly the kind of ship we needed.